Come on, this is a good topic, isn't it? We had conversations like these a ton over the past, 3-4 years, something like that? It's kind of crazy to me how quickly time passes, but when it comes to the conversation we're going to have here today, I think this is a fun one to revisit. Let's go over Vancouver and let's go over Colorado. Full disclosure, I'm recording this video on Friday, December 10th, 8:46 p.m. PST. So it's actually the second period intermission between the Vancouver Canucks and Winnipeg Jets game. I'm going on a trip on the weekend. We won't be back until late Monday, so I'm recording all the videos in advance. But when it comes to the conversation of today, we're focusing on two players. Let's go over to Vancouver and take a look at one of their best defensemen ever, and arguably the best defenseman in franchise history to be, Quinn Hughes. And then we'll go over onto Colorado and take a look at the player who has served as somewhat of a media-induced rival, Cale Makar. Now, the history between these two guys, it goes back quite a few years, and it's kind of funny how everything has panned out. But just for the sake of going through things in chronological order, I guess we'll start out with Cale Makar and his profile here first. Cale Makar, 23 years old, 5'11", 187, a right-handed defenseman who was drafted 4th overall by the Colorado Avalanche in a 2017 NHL Entry Draft. He was a guy that was taken out of the Brooks Bandit system in the AJHL, so Junior A hockey in Alberta. And even though he was taken from the Junior A Alberta scene, he was seen as just this dynamic, offensively gifted, puck-moving defenseman who had so many skills, playmaking and goal-scoring-wise, that there was just so much hype going around Cale Makar, even though the Colorado Avalanche were the worst team in the NHL in 2016-17 by far, and they slipped from 1st to 4th overall in the draft lottery. Back in this time frame, I made a video talking about how Cale Makar was going to be the next best thing for the Colorado Avalanche, and how this guy was just so offensively talented and gifted, and that he had all these qualities to his game that made him a super projectable defenseman at the NHL level, with the league's transition towards speed and agility being the main driving factors of gameplay. And these claims were exemplified even more as playing for UMass in the NCAA, Cale Makar was an absolute monster. For Team Canada at the World Juniors as well, he was over a point per game in his first and only year on the team. But then in 2018-19, things got a little bit crazy. Because for the UMass Amherst program, he had himself a season for the ages as the captain of the program. He had 49 points in 41 games played, 16 goals, 33 assists. And just the skills that this guy possessed, they were on full display as a, 20-year-old defenseman? But the thing is, even though Cale Makar was out there in the NCAA level doing some really good things, super dynamic, offensively capable defenseman, he wasn't the only one who was exhibiting the same kind of skills that he did. Makar was defined mostly by his agile footwork and offensive gifts, but before that 2018-19 season began, there was another player who actually suited up in the NCAA the year prior as well. Quinn Hughes. Quinn was born October 14th, 1999, so pretty much a full year after Cale Makar was born. Hughes is 5'10", 170, he's a left-handed defenseman, whereas Cale Makar is on the right, but because Quinn Hughes was born in 99, in October he actually had himself a year extra in the NCAA that he played before getting drafted by the big club. In 2017-2018, which was also Cale Makar's rookie season in the NCAA, Quinn Hughes had 29 points in 37 games played, a better point production metric than Makar. Quinn Hughes then got drafted by the Vancouver Canucks in a move that a lot of Canucks fans absolutely adored at the time, and Jim Benning, former Canucks GM, adored at the time as well, absolutely raving to the media, "Oh, we love Quinn Hughes, we needed this guy, we're so happy that he was available right there." And the next season, you could kind of see the point production keep itself up there. Quinn Hughes, for the University of Michigan, 33 points in 32 games played in 2018-19. However, even though he was a Hobey Baker finalist, he did not get himself that Hobey Baker award. No. The Hobey Baker in 2018-19 went to the other guy who was an agile, offensively gifted defenseman who was over a point per game, Cale Makar. Even though in 2017-18 Hughes had a better point production metric, in 2018-19 Makar bested out Hughes for the award. Okay. Next season, 2019-20, this is the debut years for both of these players. Cale Makar gets 50 points in 57 games played for the Colorado Avalanche, and he's a point per game in the playoffs. Quinn Hughes plays a significantly higher amount of games, 68 total on the season, and he gets roughly the same amount of points, 53 points in all those games, and the Calder goes to Cale. Again. Okay, not again. You can only win the Calder once. Actually, no. I don't know if you can win it once. Alex Nedeljkovic might want a word with you there. But for the second year in a row, the main trophy that both of these guys are going for, Cale Makar edges out Quinn. Now, to be fair, I get the argument does exist. If you replace these guys and put them on opposite teams, if Quinn was on Colorado, who knows, he might have gotten a lot more points because the Vancouver Canucks were a significantly worse team than the Avalanche were perceived to be in that season. But nevertheless, Cale Makar's point per game metric was a lot better. He won the Calder. These two guys, even though they had similar skill sets, one was just better than the other in the voting. Last season, things kind of had a similar set of numbers. Quinn Hughes, playing on a bad Vancouver Canucks team, was a minus 24, 41 points in 26 games played. Not a good number there compared to Cale Makar, who was a plus 17. He was a point per game guy in 44 total games, and, I get it. The teams really do play a difference, right? But when it gets to this point, after all these years, I start to sort of formulate the idea in my mind that, yes, even though Quinn Hughes is just so good, and I love this guy to death, he is one of the best players I've ever seen on the team that I cheer for, Cale Makar is just better. And I know, it's tough to go out there and admit that, get off the high horse and say that one guy is better than the other guy. They're both extraordinarily talented. They're both just franchise-defining guys that I think any team would want to have on their team. And even if you look at this season, Quinn Hughes right now, he has an assist in the game that I'm watching that's going on in the background as I record this audio. He's at 22 points in 27 games played. Cale Makar is at 23 points in 20 games at the time of recording this audio. And even though these guys have always been compared and they've had similar play styles, there are differences that are starting to show themselves off a lot more as their NHL careers have gone on. For example, Quinn Hughes had that record a few days ago. He became one of the fastest guys to ever reach 100 career assists amongst defensemen in NHL history in 151 games played. The mark was actually matched by Adam Fox later on in the week, but Quinn Hughes is all by himself here with Zubov, Mark Howe, Stefan Pershin, Al MacInnis, and a few other guys. You then have yourselves Cale Makar on the other side. He's the first defenseman to score 10 goals this season, and he joined some elite company in the process. Fewest games by a defenseman to score 10 goals in a season since 1967-1968. Cale Makar is right there with guys like Bobby Orr, Ray Bourque, Danny Potvin, very, very good names too. Cale Makar, to me, is a lot more of a power goal scorer of a defenseman, a guy who can just charge up and go like a bull in a china shop, and you can't stop him because he's just so powerful. It's not just the pure speed that I think really gives Cale Makar an edge in this kind of conversation, but it's just the sheer dominance and the timing of it. He chooses his moments so specifically that when he charges up and he starts galloping like a horse, it's so tough to shove the puck off of this guy, even though he is only 5'11". He also has that great shot, and that shot from the point especially, it's just so precise and accurate that he scores all these goals all the time. Quinn is a lot more of a playmaker, and he's a lot more of a spinny guy too. If I were to choose one that I think is more exciting and ooh and ah to watch, I'd say it's Quinn. But the guy who takes me out of my seat a little bit more when he takes the puck in his own zone and starts out an end-to-end rush, it's Cale Makar in that respect. Quinn is a lot more deceptive, he's a lot more passy, he's a lot more of a playmaker, which is why he's got all these records for assists and all that. Meanwhile, Cale is out there scoring 10 plus goals a year. Quinn, his most productive goal season was his rookie season, 8 goals in 68 games played, but at the end of the day, it's a completely different style from Cale, even though both of these guys have pretty similar skills. If you isolate the individual talents, I do think that these guys have some pretty comparable levels of hockey playing ability. It's just the way they use them, they're hockey minds, they think differently. Therefore, they produce different kinds of results. So at the end of the day, even though I'm going to say it right here, Cale Makar is the better defenseman. He also is right-handed, so that gives him a big benefit in these conversations too. Quinn Hughes is still our darling on the Vancouver Canucks, and I wouldn't really trade this guy for anything. Anything? I don't know. Talk to me in the comments what do you think. I hope you enjoyed this Boucher 99. And bye.